Yo, hey, what's going on everybody? Alex with you here again as usual. Thanks for dropping by for yet another chess video. It's always great to see you guys. It seems like it's been a couple of weeks since I've uploaded my last video. Been just really busy with everything. Today we're going to be talking about chess tables. Now before I get started, you might ask yourself, chess tables, what is there to talk about? Will you just have a table, get a table, just put your chessboard on something and play chess? And hopefully in today's video, I will give you guys something to think about, because I've recently myself have been out trying to find a chess table, and you guys might be able to see this corner right over here. I have a chess table that I will show you guys here in just a second. It took me quite a while to find the right chess table, because before buying it, there were some characteristics and some factors that I was looking for that sort of caused me to ask myself, well, is there a difference in, for example, the height of the table? Is there a difference in the size of the table, the weight of the table? Are we getting a table that has folding legs or non-folding legs? A lot of these things are really important to consider. So I'm going to kind of run you through my thought process and also kind of give you guys something to think about if you're out there looking for a chess table, or even if you're not looking for a chess table and you just want to think about some of the things that I introduce here for the sake of health and ergonomics. I think that this video is going to be really helpful to a lot of people. So I want to go ahead and get started by showing you guys some things that I found online. So when I went to Google right over here and I typed in chess table, I got a lot of different varieties. Of course, some things are sponsored, some are not. So if we look right over here, this type of chess table with this sort of middle leg, I personally don't like this particular design simply because, yes, it looks pretty good. Yes, it's got this sort of a nice aesthetic look to it. And if you have a table like this with this sort of middle leg, then it really looks nice and it looks professional. You can have a couple of chairs set on either side. And look, the only problem with this, I don't have a table like this, but I just feel like this leg here in the middle, if you're going to be putting your legs underneath a table, which is something that oftentimes we have to do to get closer to the table itself so we can get closer to the board, I feel like this here leg in the middle and this base are going to end up basically becoming a hindrance to where if we want to get pretty close to the board, which goes the same for both people, in fact, then we're going to be running into that middle section. And so the top of the table seems like it's relatively large, but the bottom part here I feel like would be an issue. Now, I don't have a table like this, and if you guys do own a table like this, let me know if that is actually an issue to you. Can you get pretty close to the table? And if so, do you find that having that middle section is something that like your legs will push into? But like I said, just looking at it, I probably wouldn't get this table just because even though it looks nice, I think the legs would be an issue here. So another thing that I want to kind of show you guys is I did already got a couple of tables. Here's a table that I've wanted to get for quite a long time. Ever since I started collecting chess pieces, I wanted to get this table, but it's always been a pricey table. I think at the time when I looked at it a couple of years ago, it was retailing for about $500. And now with inflation and everything, it's $800. The things that I like about this particular table is that, well, you got the 4 legs, and now you can put your legs underneath this table. You got these little tiny drawers on both sides where you can put the chess pieces, which is also really nice. One of the things I don't really care much about is the actual board on top, which, given that this is specifically a chess table, it makes sense that they have a chessboard here. All you're missing in this case is the chess pieces, which you buy separately. But for $800, essentially you're getting both a chess table, a storage box, you can call it, the storage compartments, and the chessboard, which seems like it would be a good deal. The only problem is I have collected so many different chessboards. I don't want to basically limit myself to one particular chessboard, and although you can put other chessboards on top of this, theoretically, then I'm still paying a whole lot extra for the fact that there is an embedded chessboard in the center of the table. So for that particular reason, I just felt like I was going to be paying a little bit more, and I didn't really necessarily like the layout of these, like the coloration of these pieces. of the chessboard. I like things that are a little bit more subtle, a little bit more like here we have these dark squares that have this very intense looking grain, but I like more of a walnut finish. So yeah, I like this table for a long time, and then I just kind of, I don't know. There's another table that is also sold on House of Staunton. It's this guy right here. This one sells even more. So this one is $1,200 essentially, and it's a little bit bigger. It's got more wood. It's got these sides here. That's really nice. It also has little compartments here, and then we can see that it's got these almost like it has these. I'm not sure what material this is, but I would assume it's some kind of a semi-padded material on each side. That although from here it looks like it might just, I'm not sure what it is. Either way. Yeah, this might be like a little bit of a softer material, which is kind of nice. So, but $1,200 is definitely a lot, and if I didn't feel justified paying the $800 on for the other table, I'm not gonna spend $1,200 on this, even though it does look like it would be quite a nice looking table that would be definitely very useful and practical for anybody. So then there's some factors that we want to consider as far as the mobility of the table. With this type of table here, the Camaratta Signature Championship Chess Table, it's stationary. You're not going to be moving this around, and once you put it together, you're going to keep it in the same room that you put it together, because if we look at the characteristics, that it sits 30.5 inches tall, and then 38 inches long and 32 inches between the players. So 32 inches is the width of the table. Now, that important consideration is 32 inches is more than our usual door width. And considering that doors also have the hinge and the door, once you assemble this type of table in any particular room, if you wanted to carry it across to another room, you're going to have to disassemble the table in its entirety. Essentially, you have to remove the sides and the legs and everything. So that kind of goes the same for the other table too. The other table, the one for $800 here, I think measures it at 30 inches tall, so a little bit shorter by half an inch, and then 34. The surface measuring 34 inches long and 28 inches between the players. 28 inches is still quite wide. And depending on where you're thinking about assembling a table like this, you might not be able to take it out of the room. It just might not work. So then there's the question of, if you're looking for a chess table, do you want a chess table that's stationary, or do you want one that you can move around? Because if you want one that can move around, you might want to look for one that has the legs folding in some way, so that you can fold the legs and carry the table across. The table that you see right over here, I bought this at Meijer for probably about $40 or so. It's got a solid plastic top here. It folds in two like this, and then the legs actually are folding inwards, and so the whole thing just kind of folds into semi-compact little square that you can carry across anywhere. And that's what I do. That's why I use this table a lot, when I do these videos, because I can carry this table around outside, inside, any particular room I choose to have it. So for me, from a practical standpoint, it makes sense to have a table that you can move around. But if you're looking for a table that you're just gonna keep in one room, and you know that that's the room that's dedicated to your chess games or your chess analysis, then yeah, maybe you don't necessarily need a table that folds or is compact in any way. You can have one that's stationary, and that might not be a factor that's important to you, okay? If you are looking for a table that you'd want to carry around or maybe transport somewhere, one table I found here was this particular King Camp bamboo folding table that's portable. And depending on the size that you want to get, there's the smallest one is $89. And these are the size configurations for this particular table, and all the little legs here I think are made out of aluminum. There's a height adjustment option, which is kind of nice, and that's something we'll talk to here in just a second. But the nice thing about this particular table is that it will fold, and then the individual little planks on top will actually kind of fold in on one on top of another. And then ultimately you are left with something that can be, see right over here, it can be folded all inwards on itself and put in this little king camp bag, which is really neat for a table, because then you can just fold the table up and take it with you. If, let's say, you decided you want to go meet your friend at the park somewhere and you want to bring a little table, but then again you need to bring chairs possibly, and hopefully maybe the park that you're going to might have its own tables there and chairs. So, but you know, that's definitely something to consider. The weight of what you can put on top is 176 pounds, which is more than any particular chessboard. Here it weighs at 9.25 pounds, which is still, yeah, right here, which is still reasonable. It's still reasonable, under 10 pounds. It's kind of like a light dumbbell, and I feel like if you're going somewhere to a park or something, then you can bring something like this with you. The only problem is the measurements. The 25.6 is going to be the length. The 19.7 is going to be the width. And the height is 25.6. Now, 25.6, and I'll talk about the height here of the table shortly, but 25.6 may be a bit too short for some people. 25.6, remember the Camaratta table that was the one for 800 here was measuring at 30 inches in height, okay? 25.6, you might say that doesn't seem like it's a big difference, but it actually is. I'll show you what that means here in just a second. Then there's a table that I found on Chess House that seems like it's a nice option, but once again, these prices is definitely a bit high for me. And it does come what may look like a Droiki style board on top here. And then if we look at the way that it's arranged, you got these sort of little sides here that I think come out from the side of the table that you can put your chess pieces on, but you don't get a lot of space. Okay, it seems like you got your clock, you got your space for your chess pieces, but where's the space for me to take notation? Or maybe if I want to put a drink or something, you know, that's a little bit small. And then you have basically the internal part here where you store all your stuff, which your clock, your pieces, and that's kind of neat too. So it does have a sort of its own little storage compartment. But the problem is when I look at the top here, the way that this little board just kind of sits on top, I'm not really sure if it sort of locks in on top when you put it, or does it just sort of sit on top of the table there. That if that's the case, then it probably won't be too stable. And well, given just the price of $900, it's just something that I probably would not get. So with that said, that's pretty much all I wanted to show you, and some of the things that I wanted to kind of make you think here. We're gonna go ahead and jump in, and I'm gonna show you some tables that I have here, and hopefully some things that I will talk about will be interesting and maybe important to some people. So let's jump in. Okay, so this table here, like I said before, I purchased this, I believe, from Meyer. They sell tables that are equivalent to this, and a lot of your general grocery stores like Walmart, I think, too, sells these type of tables. You can get one online relatively cheap. It's a Max Chief table. It's got a nice sturdy top. I have another one somewhere, and it's bigger than this one, but same construction. I like this one. I prefer this one just because it's a little bit lighter and easier to kind of carry around to wherever I need it. The height of this table can be adjusted. I have it on like the second, so that you have inside here, I'm not sure if you guys are going to be able to see it, but you have height that can be adjusted down a little bit, so make it a little bit lower, but I have it on the second setting from the bottom. You can adjust it as high as you need it based on 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Currently, my height of this table is sufficient enough for me, and it is measuring at 25 inches from the bottom. I don't use this table a lot to actually play chess games on, as much as I just use it to showcase things on for you guys. A lot of times it's a big enough table and it sits low enough for me to be able to lay everything out and talk about things, and that's just this table is helpful for me. The top measurement of this particular table here, it measures at about 24 inches across, and lengthwise it's a pretty long table, so it's about 48, so 48 by 24. When you're looking for a chess table, it's important that not so much the length of the table that's important, unless it's a square table, but it's the shortest distance, which would be considered the width. And now if it's a square, completely square table, and both the width and the length are the same, then both of those factors, of course, are going to be important. And what I mean by this is the width of the table, which is in this case 24. Is what we're going to be limited by as far as the measurement, as far as the biggest type of board that you can put on here. Now, most of the time, as we've seen, for example, with the Camaratta chess table that I just shown online, the footprint of the actual chessboard was 22.75. So in this particular case, we're more than that. So we should be okay with the 22.75. In fact, most tournament chess boards out there, whether it's a roll-up mousepad board, are going to be running somewhere between about 20 to, I'd say, probably close to 23, 24 inches. So if you're choosing a chess table, that is something that you want to consider, that the shortest distance, which is the width, I guess, would be bigger than the board that you have or the board that you're planning to put on that. Otherwise, what's going to happen is if your table is smaller than, if for example you have a chessboard that's wooden, you are still going to be able to put it on the top surface of the table, but you're going to have part of the board hanging off the side, and it just doesn't look aesthetic, and it might throw off the balance of the board as well. So it's important that whatever table you're considering, those measurements are going to be important. Not so important as the height, and we'll see that here shortly, but the width is important for the actual chess board. The length is going to be important for all the other stuff that you're going to plan to put on this table. You want to have enough length of the table so that you have that space where you can put your clock, you can put the chess pieces when you're playing the game, because sometimes the tables are made in such a way that they're so small that basically you have the board and you have no space for your clock, no space for your chess pieces, and then you're having to basically take your chess pieces and put them on the floor next to the board. That's not ideal. You want to have enough space for maybe your drink, if you or your opponent wants to have a coffee, depending on where you are, or just a bottle of water or soda or whatever, you know. If you got to have enough space. So it is nice to have that little bit of extra space for all the other stuff, okay? You want to take notes, which in some situations that's like imperative, especially if you're in a tournament setting. You have to have that space. You can't just hold your little chessboard in, like little chess pad in your hand or on your lap and take notes because you don't have enough space. That's not ideal. So give yourself enough space with the chess table. And when you're purchasing, or if you're considering purchasing it, you want enough space in your lengthwise for all those considerations. Now, another thing that's important is the width of the table here. Okay, this width here, and you might say, okay, well that might not make sense why it's important, but it is important. Right over here in this case, the top portion of the table and the bottom part here, it is important because if you're planning to play chess on any particular table, you also have to consider the fact that your legs, your thighs have to, or might want to go underneath the table, which will bring you effectively closer to the chessboard. And if this part here is too thick, and although the top part of the table is at the height that's convenient to you, but this part is too thick and the table is too thick like this, then it might prevent you from being able to put your thighs underneath the table, and then as a result you might be stuck with your legs kind of going sideways or something, and that's really not ideal, okay? Here's an example of what I'm talking about. It's a nice little table that I think I have acquired from my parents a long time ago. It's a nice wooden solid table with a really nice design, and as you can see right over here, the legs have these like really pretty details on them, and overall it's a nice solid table. But unfortunately I would not be able to recommend this table as far as playing chess on it, because first of all it's kind of low, it sits pretty low to the ground, but secondly and most importantly is that this section right over here, between here the top and this part, is so thick that I find that it's really hard for me to be able to put my legs underneath of it, and I'll show you here that in just a second. The measurement from ground up for this particular table is right at about almost 24 inches, just slightly under, like 23.5. That's pretty low for a chess table, okay? And now, of course, if we were going to talk about a chess table, we also need to mention chairs, okay? It's very important from an ergonomic standpoint to consider what type of chair you're going to be using with your chess table. In this case, I have what may look like a relatively normal chair. And so when you're looking at an ergonomic position of your chair and how you're going to be playing, what you want to consider is the height of the chair will determine the angulation of your leg with regards to the ground. If you're a tall person, you might want to consider getting a taller chair, but it is important that when you sit, your legs are not dangling off, because then you're putting too much pressure underneath on the chair. It could cut off a little bit of circulation, but more importantly, you don't want to have a chair that's too small or that feels uncomfortable, because the last thing you want to do is you want to play your chess game for several hours and be very uncomfortable, because as I will talk to you guys shortly about the ergonomics aspect of it, it's very important to consider how you're sitting when you're playing your chess games, okay? The height of the table will effectively determine the angle at which you're looking at your chessboard. Depending on where the chessboard is in space will determine how your neck and your head is lowered or whether or not it's straight. We are not even going to be realizing this, but when you're playing your chess game, a lot of times people assume the most unergonomic positions possible, and then they fail to realize the fact that they've been sitting there for like an hour in a kind of a bad position, and then the next day they wake up and their neck is kind of bothering them, their upper back, their lower back might be bothering them. So a lot of these things people just kind of don't even consider, but I do, because it's important to me. Okay, but once again, this table would probably be okay if the height from the top of the table to where the bottom of the table is maybe was here, and I could still be able to put my legs underneath. But in this case, you can see that that's just not going to happen. So in this case, then, if I were to want to play on this particular table, I could play like this, but then I'm a little further away from the actual table. Ideally, I'd like to put myself a little bit closer, but that's okay. I can still do away with a table like this. I'm just going to be having to reach out a little bit, and I would have to sort of position my lower back when I'm playing. So not as ideal. If I wanted to be a little closer to the table, then I would have to almost like do this to where I'm putting my legs sideways. And then you're assuming a completely not a good position for your body to stay in for a long term. This is really bad, you know. So yeah, not ideal. For kids too, then for kids, small kids, you're gonna probably want to get like a smaller chair for a kid. But then again, once again, for a child, you know, they're gonna be able to put their legs underneath here, hopefully. But then this here height might end up effectively pushing the top of the table to where it's too high for them, depending on the age of the child, of course. Either way, just something to consider if you're getting a table or buying any kind of table to play chess. This here width from top to the bottom is going to be important, okay? I think about a couple of months ago, I purchased this table here from Bed Bath & Beyond. I actually bought this specifically to play chess. And like I said, there was a lot of different factors that I was considering. About the height of the table, I didn't really know what I was looking for, but I was kind of stemming from like the Camaratta table. Given that the Camaratta table is a specific table of high quality that's made to play chess, I kind of figured that the dimensions of that particular table would be something that I want to replicate more or less in any table that I'm looking for. So as far as the height of it, for example, the Camaratta, as you remember, was 30 inches in height, and the more expensive option was 30, I believe 30.5 in height. So I was looking for something that's close to that, because not being able to actually have the table in front of me, I have to make educated guesses. And I thought, well, if the Camaratta table is about 30 inches in height, that's what I'm going to be looking for. As far as the dimensions of the top of the table, I was looking for something specifically with the shortest length. Now this table is square, as you can see, but the shortest length would be like the width of it. I wanted it to be bigger than my biggest chessboard. So I have a 2.5 inch chessboard that I think measures at approximately 23 or even like 24 inches. I wanted to have enough space on both sides for the chess clock, for you to be able to keep your, or take your notation for your chess pieces, of course. As you're playing your game, you don't want to feel like as you're continuing progressing through the game and the chess pieces are accumulating on the side of the board that you are all of a sudden running out of space, or you don't have enough space, or the chess pieces are occupying all the space where you're moving with your hands. Basically, I wanted to have enough space on the chess table for a comfortable game. And the measurements of this particular tables were 29 and a half by, I believe, 29 and a half, given this, yeah, 29 and a half by 29 and a half. And I feel like that's a pretty good, that's a pretty solid space. I would probably say that would be enough for me, and that would be enough for a lot of different people, okay? Height-wise, this measures at 29 inches. Now, in this case, the board that we see here on top is the iChess1 electronic chess board, and the type of board that it is, it does measure a little bit higher, so it sits about an inch, slightly more than an inch up above the surface. Sometimes a wooden chessboard might sit a little bit lower, like half an inch. And that kind of makes a difference, because the bigger the board, then that effectively pushes the surface of the chessboard higher up. So, but in this case, 29 plus an inch gives us right about 30 inches. The height that we've seen with the Camaratta was also 30 inches. So ideal? Possibly. I'm going to tell you that when I purchased this initially, I felt like it was sitting a bit taller than I would want. I actually felt like going a little bit lower, maybe a couple of inches, would be a little bit more ideal. But I kind of got used to playing on this table, and I feel like it's okay. It's got nice wooden legs here that are screwed in on the back. Now, I did see some varieties that I didn't show you, but there was, I think on one website, they were showing a table kind of similar to this, but the legs were made in such a way that all four legs could just sort of crisscross fold in on one another. And that's really nice, because then you would have a table that you could carry with you, carry through the different rooms, because given that this is 29 inches in height and 29.5 inches in width and length, it actually is really hard to carry this through normal door widths. So in order for me to even bring it to this room here from downstairs where I have it in my office, I have to sort of, I have a closet on the other space of the door, and I'm actually kind of pushing first one set of the legs through and then the other. And I'm always worried that I'm going to scuff up either the walls or the table. So it's more of a stationary table. It's not one that, like this guy here, where you can just fold it and take it with you anywhere you want to go. But it is probably a good option for somebody that's looking for a stationary table. I purchased this, I think I paid about $150, which is a big difference between the Camaratta table, which was $800, or the Camaratta Plus, which was like $1,200. 150 seems like more reasonable. Now, the biggest advantage you'll get with the stationary table is that once you tighten all the screws and everything underneath, it's a very solid table, so it doesn't move around. This plastic table moves around a little bit more just because of its construction, so it's a little bit less balanced. But this one is very solid, and when you're playing your games and when you have all the stuff on the side of it, it doesn't wobble, which is really nice. So let's look at this table here in just a second. This chair that I have here measures at about 17 inches from the ground, so that's an important consideration too, of course, chair height. And then this is about 25, so 17 to 25. And in this particular case, my thighs are able to get underneath the table, but there's not that much space left here. And in fact, when I'm getting a little bit closer here, I can feel that I'm kind of squeezing my thighs here. But it's possible, okay? It's possible. Given that this particular table actually adjusts in height, that's great. I can adjust it higher or lower. But I feel like 25 inches is not terrible, okay? Even when I'm sitting right now, I've got that sort of like, if you look at the side of my neck here and my back, when you're sitting and playing a game, you want to assume the most ergonomic position that you can. Given that you're going to be playing for, a long extended period of time, we're not really thinking about how our back is. Now, our back kind of breaks down into lower back, right over here, and then upper back and neck. Those are important things. When I'm at work and I'm doing dentistry and I'm fixing teeth, I very infrequently actually sit. A lot of the dentistry that I do standing because of the ergonomics, because of the fact that by sitting, you are a lot of times having to assume angles and neck angles that are not good for you. Now, dentistry is similar to chess. I mean, in chess, you're sitting for an hour, you're sitting more in a position, you might not even be aware of how you're sitting. If you got your neck like this, that's putting a lot of strain on not only your vertebral column, but also on your trapezius muscles and the upper back muscles. You might be putting a lot of strain. All of a sudden, you realize you're getting a headache. You might be getting the occipital headache back here because all of a sudden your muscles that are attaching to the back of your skull are becoming more tense. And then while not even playing the game, you might realize the next day, why do I have a headache after playing chess? It's because you might be sitting at an angle that's not very good. Ideally, you want to have a kind of a nice straight back without doing too much of this, without taking your shoulders and putting them like this, because then what you're doing is you're forcing your rib cage to close up, that you're preventing yourself from breathing properly, and that creates a whole slew of problems. So you want to have your chest open, you want to be sitting in a comfortable, good position. And you want to be mindful of how you're sitting, okay? Some of us are not. I am. So you want to have the angle of where you're playing to be not so far down, so you're sitting and looking like this. You don't want it so far up, because if you're sitting and it's too far up, you can't really see what's going on with the pieces. So if it's too high, then you're going to be losing the actual, you got to be able to be at a good angle. I would probably say something along the lines of somewhere in the range of 45 degrees or so. Now, some people might say differently, and that's just sort of my opinion. It's not a medical conclusion, but still. But I would say in this case, 25, somewhere between 25 inches all the way up to about 30, maybe 29, honestly, would be a good range of a chess table for you to look at. Somewhere between maybe 25, 26, all the way to 29. If you're looking for something that's too high, then all of a sudden it becomes an issue to where you got to either have a high chair, or you're going to be sitting and it's basically you're going to be playing your game to where you're going to be like this. And that's just not ideal, because you can't really see your chessboard at an angle that high. You got to have your chessboard to be either like this, maybe like this. Now, the ergonomics, as far as this particular table, we do have quite a bit of space underneath here. Plenty of space for me to be able to put my legs underneath of it, and plenty of width to the table so that the opponent can do the same without really having any issues there. I would probably say that as soon as I bought this particular table, given that the height of this table is 29 inches and then plus 1 inch for the table, which, like I said, gives us what we may consider an ideal height of a chess table, I almost feel like it's a bit too high. I almost feel like I would probably prefer 2 inches lower, so maybe 28 inches instead, because I kind of feel like, yes, I can see most of the board, but it's a bit too high. Now, you do have to balance it being too high and then putting a lot of strain on your back and your neck. So in this case, I think that even though I feel like personally I could use a slightly taller chair, this is fine. This is fine as far as it puts my back and neck in a comfortable position to where I can feel like I could sit here for an extended period of time and play the game, which is the reason why I got this table in the first place, because I wanted to use some of these electronic chessboards, whether it's the Chestnut, iChess1, ChessUp. I wanted to be able to use this effectively to play some of those games. So, and I feel like I've spent my $150 for something that I'm pretty happy with overall, and I would definitely recommend this table. I would recommend it, but I also realize the fact that there's going to be some people out there that may choose something different. And if you already have a table that you are happy with and that you feel like it's better than any of the other table, then share with me about what type of table you have or what type of arrangement you have. So when it comes to chess tables, in conclusion, I don't really feel like there's going to be a one size fits all. I think that if you're looking for a chess table and you want specific measurements, like I said, be mindful of how large the chessboard which you're planning to place on that chess table is going to be. Most chessboards will be somewhere, as far as the size and the width of the board, will be somewhere between 20 to 23 inches or so, maybe 24 for the larger boards. So you want to be able to find a table that has enough width and length for you to be able to effectively place that board on the table, and also to be able to play your game and have all the other accessories that you need. And also the height of the table is going to be really important. Like I said before, 30 inches is good. I probably aim somewhere between 26 to 30, maybe 26 to 29. Having an automatic adjustable table, I know I've seen the electronic ones where you can just push a button and it'll raise it up to any particular level. Those tables are going to be a little bit more bulky, a little bit more expensive, probably less mobile. They're going to be tables that you kind of put in one room and keep it there. But the nice advantage of having a table like that is that you can raise it up almost to a standing height, which is another consideration that some people might prefer to play chess standing. I know when I read books, a lot of times I'll read them while walking around the room or standing. I don't like to read books while I'm sitting or laying down, because I feel like I don't get as much blood circulation through my body when I'm just sitting. If you're sitting like this for an extended period of time and you're not moving a whole lot, you might not be getting as much blood to your brain, and therefore you might not be focusing as best as you could, potentially, especially if you're playing a game for an extended period of time. So yeah, it's something to consider for sure. I think that ergonomics is very important when we're playing chess, because for a lot of people out there, when they're playing chess, it's not that they play chess once a year for 30 minutes. They actually play games for hours on end, and a lot of times they do it regularly, like every week. And so many hours per month of you sitting and sort of having your body arranged in a particular angle with your neck being arranged could potentially be detrimental if the ergonomics are not ideal, and it could cause some strain. It could cause potentially some damage. So yeah, I definitely think there's a lot to it. It's not just like, oh, we get our chess pieces, get our chessboard, and whatever. We'll come to the table when we come to the table. And the last thing we consider is the actual table or the chess chairs when it comes to playing chess. So, like I said, this video was meant to be kind of an open-ended type of thing where I welcome you guys' comments and thoughts on this particular subject. Please let me know in the comments below if you already have a chess table, or if you've also spent time looking for a chess table and you found something that you were happy with. What are some of the factors, some of the elements that you were looking for? What are some of the reasons why you like a particular chess table over the other? Is it this fact that it has storage space, or is it the size of the table? Was it the price? Was it the type of material that's made? Yeah, let me know. And as always, thank you guys for stopping by, and everybody hopefully stay safe, play more chess, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Okay, bye bye.